Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Hi, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Christine Sparacino, and I'm the author of Energize Your Retirement, Stories of Passionate Pursuit.
That sounds pretty awesome. So what gave you the idea for that book?
Well, it's kind of a complicated story, but I'll try and make it simple. I retired. I was a grant writer for quite a while and retired. And like everybody else who retires, I had a bucket list. And for years and years, I've written stories, romance stories, and mystery stories, and I never finished any of them. Poetry, never finished really anything. And one of my bucket lists was I was going to write a book completely, and I was going to self-publish it. That was my first thing on my bucket list. And it took a lot of soul searching, but I finally realized that I was much better at nonfiction writing and research and ideas than I was at creating fiction. And so that's how it all started.
So what are some of the things that a person can do to energize their retirement?
Well, one of the things I was trying to get my husband to retire as well as when I retired. And he would always say, but what would I do? What would I do? He started his own business 33 years ago, and he couldn't see himself doing anything different. And so I started researching this and looking around and asking people. And one thing led to another, and I was meeting people who took up sculpting or took up dancing or took up bird watching or mushroom hunting. A couple who learned how to ride motorcycles and ride motorcycles 4 months out of the year. And I was absolutely fascinated with these people that I was meeting. And so I started interviewing them, recording it, and writing a book about it. And each chapter of the book talks about a different passion that someone has created for themselves.
So how did you go about approaching the nonfiction? Because it's different than writing fiction. How did you do your research? How did you do any interviews, and how did you get those scheduled?
Well, first of all, my background. I was a grant writer. And what a grant writer is more or less writing business proposals to foundations and coming up with ways to communicate, to appeal to those foundations and what impact you're going to make. You collect data, you research funding organizations. And so my whole background is research. And what I did to find these people that I interviewed was I got online and looked for interest groups, and I had some criteria in mind. I wanted something that appealed to everybody, so that someone in Bangor, Maine, or Los Angeles, or Idaho, or Biloxi, Mississippi, they could all get involved in this, that it wasn't something that was just a Florida phenomenon or something like that. And so I went online and looked at all kinds of organizations. And then I would write to them and tell them what I was doing, that I was looking for someone who had retired, who had this passionate activity that they were involved in, and who was willing to be interviewed. And people were really excited about it. I had absolutely no trouble finding people. And then I would set up a time and I would interview them and then transfer that information onto to my computer, massage it a little bit. And that's kind of how I started doing the whole thing.
So you got the inspiration from your own retirement and trying to get your husband into retirement. Were there any other experiences or any other forms of inspiration that kind of informed this book?
Yeah. when I started thinking about doing this, I started going to different affairs that authors would have, listening to authors, and really kind of thinking about how I was going to put this together. And one author, I went to I think it was a library function. His name was Guy Kawasaki. I don't know if you know him, but he became famous working for Steve Jobs at Apple. He was the vice president, I think, of marketing for the Macintosh. And he's now, very wealthy, rich venture capitalist. But he also writes marketing books. And so I went and listened to him. And one of the things that he said that he uses was his blog to kind of crowdsource ideas. And he invited all of these people who follow him on his blog to read his next work and critique it. And I really liked that idea. So one of the things I did when I was writing my book was I contacted a few people that I have a very strong relationship with, former bosses or very good friends, but not people who would be afraid to say, I read this chapter, it's not very good, or I'm not interested in what you're saying. I wanted someone to be very frank and candid about the work, and it worked out beautifully. So I kind of crowdsourced editors for each chapter, and they came back with really interesting ideas. I had men as well as women, so that I made sure I had both sexes covered, and they came back with really good ideas. And so I would reevaluate the chapter after they said that. And that's kind of how I put the book together.
So what's your daily practice of writing? I mean, now that this book is done, are you working on another book? And if so, do you commit to a certain amount of words each day?
Actually, I'm in what I call a cleansing period. No, I'm not writing every day. But when I was doing this book, I treated it like a full-time job. I had that luxury of being retired. And so just as I would with grant writing, I start at 9 o'clock at night. I might go through till 11 o'clock in the afternoon, break for lunch and take a walk around the block. My husband called it possessed and obsessed, but I treated it that way. I also did it in a very structured manner. I outlined chapters. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I outlined all the questions, and before I asked any of the questions, I wanted to make sure that they were all kind of answering the same type of question, so that I could get a real variety from each pursuit. But I was very organized about it. Right now, I'm in the process of thinking about a new project, but I don't write every day, and I don't journal.
You don't journal? That's a new one from an author.
No, I find that I ruminate too much, that I really don't like that type of experience journaling. I like to kind of create scenes in my head.
But you don't commit it to paper. Do you at least keep something where you record ideas, maybe ideas for future books?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Yes. I do what I call core dump. When I've got enough in my head, then I write it down.
Oh, okay. So you do keep track of it.
Yes. I have binders. I have folders. I have on my computer. I have scattered Word documents all over my hard drive.
So who are some of your favorite writers? They could be fiction or nonfiction.
Well, when I read, I love different books. I love Lee Child's. His Jack Reacher books are just total escape. I love the Bosch series by Michael Connelly. I love historical fiction. One of my favorite books I think it was last summer, was The Nightingale. Who's that from? Kristen Hanna, I think it was. And one summer, I started a project where I read all of the autobiographies of Maya Angelou. And that was really an interesting little project I set aside for myself. She was quite an interesting lady. I'm going on a trip to Spain, so I'm kind of slogging through Michener's Iberia. And drove off my reading. And I'm variety stuff.
So can you talk about now publishings? Are you self-published or do you go through a publisher?
I am self-published, and I want to put a plug in here. I didn't know anything about publishing, and I took, I think it was at the San Francisco Writers Conference, I took a workshop by Carla King called Self-Publishing Boot Camp, and that was a really helpful workshop for me. I learned an awful lot, and I really appreciate the fact that that she was available, that I could do that. And I refer to the book all the time. Another place I learned about publishing was a lot of websites. What's Joe's last name? Joe Friedlander, on designing books, and Joanna Penn, Creative Penn. There's a lot of information out there, but mostly by going to workshops, that's where you meet all of the people I think are really involved in publishing today. We had speakers from Ingram Spark and from all different venues, and that's where I really learned a lot.
So being a self-published author, there's definitely these days a lot of saturation out there. There's a lot of books getting published, some very poorly edited, some very short. They kind of run the gamut. Are there any marketing techniques that you have found to be effective?
Yeah, I failed at some, and then others worked really well for me. And I think when I finally sat down and analyzed, okay, who's going to buy this book? That's when it started to really gel. At first, I was sending press releases to everybody, to newspapers and magazines and whatever, and that didn't work for me at all. But what really worked was I wrote a letter to different money managers. I thought they know people who are retired, so wealth advisors or money managers, and I wrote them a letter and I told them about this book, and I asked them if they wanted a free copy. And I had people respond to me, and what happened was that it was in October. It was just before Christmas. They had enough time to read it and order books for all their clients. And another thing that happened was a fellow from Charles Schwab and then another fellow from another agency wanted me to give presentations. And so they would buy all these books, and I would give a PowerPoint presentation, and they would have dinner for people, and then we would have a book signing, and they would give these people books. So that was one thing that really, really worked for me. Another thing that worked well was contacting people who had blogs, and they were always looking for writers. I did a number of blogs for the Huffington Post on older people, 55 and older, and also a lot of retired websites. One particular was a military retirees who are veterans who are retired. I did blogs for them. And so just trying to locate that niche, that really helped. That was the best thing I did.
And I guess that means really understanding the material that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. You think you understand it until you try marketing. And marketing, as far as I'm concerned, is not fun. Getting up in front of people is really scary to me, but you got to do it.
When you send the press releases out, you said that you typically just never heard back.
Yeah, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, well, I hear that a lot too. So, in being in contact with various media outlets, they claim they get, thousands of press releases, each month, and their inbox is always flooded. And it's hard for any press release to stand out. I mean, you could have the best press release out there, but if that media outlet, let's just say blogger or journalist, has 1,000 emails sitting in their email account and they're all press releases, I guess the tendency might just be to delete and not even concern themselves with it.
Yeah, and also I think they're looking for very topical subjects, and I thought that retirement would be, since 10,000 baby boomers a day are retiring. I just assumed that would be very topical, but I just didn't have any luck with it.
So you did outreach to money managers. You gave away free copies of your book. Was there anything else? Yeah. And also, is your book available on ebook as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Another thing that really helped was entering book contests, because I won some awards, and that helped tremendously. I have an ebook version as well as a paperback, and book contests, they help with credibility, and it was nice to put on introductions, and that helped a lot. Another thing that helped was Goodreads. Goodreads was really helpful too. They have a giveaway program, and that was very helpful as well.
So where can people learn more about you and buy your book?
Amazon. I analyzed my book sales, and either through Amazon or through me. I was on Ingram Spark for a while. I was on Google Plus, and really 99.9% of it is either me or Amazon. So they can go on Amazon.
So with Ingram, can you talk about your experience there? Because a lot of small publishers use Ingram. It's a print on demand, but they also have 100 plus platforms that the book will appear on. So there's some international distribution there. Plus, they do returnability contracts, which is usually necessary for bookstores to be able to have that returnability. But you're saying, if I'm hearing you correct, that most of your sales were actually coming from Amazon.
Yes, they were. I don't know if this was my issue or if it's an issue with other people, but my experience was with Ingram Spark. First of all, their print really wasn't as good a quality as Amazon. I mean, I hate to badmouth them because other people probably have had better experience. I had a lot of photos in my each chapter had a photo of the person I was interviewing, and in my particular instance, the Amazon printing was much sharper. Of course, the ebook, that wasn't a problem because it's digitally, the photographs looked better, but the print was much better on Amazon. That's all I can say for that.
Did you take advantage of Kindle Unlimited?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm on Kindle Unlimited.
And have you found that...
I was on Smashwords for a while, and Smashwords had a wonderful program where you could coupon and send your ebooks to people, but I wasn't getting any traffic on Smashwords. So finally, I just eliminated everything and went to Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon does seem to be the main player in the book world.
Yeah.
And Smashwords,
Yeah.
honestly, I haven't had the thing that annoyed me about Smashwords is that they're so their formatting for the text that you upload, your manuscript, is so specific to them. And it was driving me crazy because they kept rejecting it. And then I would go back and tweak it and then they'd reject it again. It was just like this ongoing process. But then when I had it up there on Smashwords, I wasn't really selling anything at all. And so I just pulled it off of Smashwords and made it exclusive to Kindle. So I could take advantage of the Kindle Unlimited, but that's where all the sales were anyhow.
I agree, and the same thing with Google Plus. I just didn't get anything there. So again, I went to Kindle. I agree.
Do you use social media to market?
I'm not very good at that. I'll tell you, it's a lot of work.
It is.
To market via social media. I really have to be honest. I mean, after a while, it became just an absolute chore to be on Twitter, to be on Facebook, and I just wasn't generating the sales. And I kept looking at it from a business perspective. Where are my sales coming from? If I did it again, the first thing I would do would be to allow a lot of money and get someone who is really good on social media to drive it, because I think it could work. I think it has real possibilities. I just wasn't very good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Social media, it's almost a burden, really. Because because you set up a Twitter account, and it's just like, okay, but then you have 0 followers, and you know how many tweets and retweeting and hashtags and all you have to do just to get 5 followers.
I know.
And you're not going to have any.
How many I have. I haven't been on there for such a long time. I have interest in it.
Yeah, well, my personal one has about 900, but that took several years just to get up to 900. And then the other ones that I have, have significantly less than that. And I know it's because I don't tweet probably as much as I should. But it's kind of annoying thinking about that when I'm like, well, I could spend this time writing or editing or doing other things that can make me a lot more marketable rather than, having a silly hashtag comment on Twitter.
Yeah, and I wasn't seeing the results. It wasn't translating into book sales. I would rather spend that time writing something for a blog. That became more, it translated into more book sales. So it's how much time do you want to spend and where do you want to spend it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, it has been nice talking to you, Christine, and I will be posting your article on the Bookish Ventures website, and hopefully you can send over all the relevant links, especially the link to your book, so people can find your book. And can you spell your first and last name, just in case somebody does an Amazon search?
Yes, Christine, Christine, Sparacino, S as in Sam, P as in Peter, Aracino. And the name of the book is Energize Your Retirement, Stories of Passionate Pursuits.
Well, it has been very enjoyable talking to you, and your insight into publishing is definitely helpful and useful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.